me in a hot seat here. It's like I'm back on the campaign trail or something. I did just get off. Like now I'm working on people's campaigns.
It's been what, 2 months?
Yes.
Well, that's right, he's the one doing the intro.
Yeah. Okay.
If you want to start right at the 30-minute mark,
Okay.
I will cut straight to being in the room and using the mic.
I will give you. And then I'm passing it to.
So everyone now should have a mic.
Oh, okay.
At least each table should have a mic now that they can use.
So I'm putting this one in.
Well, you can just, so once you're done with it, you just mute it and you can set it down. So you press it right here to mute it
Okay.
and unmute it.
Okay. Week or next week they'll be hiring my replacement, who she actually is great. I worked with her at Jefferson, and she was the person out at Perry Township. So that was a part-time thing. So now she's coming to a full-time role. Plus, but keeping the momentum going out there too.
Are you still adjunct at the university?
I am still on the band staff at Central State. And they just called me today about coming on full time at Central State, and I said no, only because I have a busy schedule. And I came off of a lot of the boards that I was on. So now I'm just president of the Dayton Foundation's African American Community Fund Board, and then school board, because school board has a lot of pieces. A lot of pieces. Every day is a phone call or a text of something.
Hello, I'm Dr. Smith, the Chief of Schools for Cincinnati Public Schools.
So by law,
When I
the
think
school board has
about
to make a
the three
decision
core
by
values,
March 1st.
that have impacted my leadership and have developed me to
we
be the
actually
leader that I
have
am today. They are servant leadership, they are my faith,
maybe
and it's
4 more meetings
collaboration.
up until
These foundations were
Christmas.
formed in me by the women in my life. I was reared by
No,
a long line
I
of
don't see us
strong
doing that.
women who had a love for God, who
We
had a
have
love
our
for their
time with the
family and
candidates
their
earlier,
community. And what
so
they
we can have
showed me was
interviews in
that
between
in
the
order to
student
be the
and
best version of
parent
myself,
meetings.
I must be connected to people. I must be a giver of my time and my resources and my
Yeah,
God
no,
given
they
talent.
literally have been
I
going all
saw
day.
them help and support the
They broke
community.
for
I
lunch.
can remember my
Um,
grandmother cooking meals
and
for women that had surgery so that their family could eat at night. I remember us collecting
they did
funds
it.
for a family that had lost their job. The home we live in now is
Yeah, and they
56
toured
years
two
old,
school
and
buildings
still family members
at
live in that
different
space.
times.
So
So
I've
one
learned to
was at
serve. I learned to give. I learned to be
one
connected
was
to
at
people. I learned
Dunwoody.
that it's not all about me.
One
So
was
my
for talking to
leadership
students,
will
and
be
one was
about
at
helping
Dunwoody
others
and
develop their
Milton.
skills as I develop and learn from
And
them. My faith is the cornerstone of who I am. It's what makes me who I am day to day, so that I treat people the way I want to be treated, that I walk in a space that I'm not trying to be the center of attention, but bring out the best in everyone else. And collaboration is the key to everything. When we all come together and we put our gifts and talents on the table, we can conquer anything. When we work together, no man is a village. So when we come together and we all sit down and look at whether we're solving a problem or figuring out how we celebrate someone, when everybody comes with their great ideas, we can move mountains. Those three traits are what and how I will lead if given the opportunity in DPS. When I think about becoming the superintendent of DPS, I get excited because it's about children. You can expect for me to create systems that are focused on young people and developing their skills for the whole child, not just the academics, but just pulling out all of their gifts, their singing talents, their athletic talents, their writing talents. You can expect for me to be visible, not only in the community, but in the school, not to just come and check on what's happening in the school, but to build relationships so that people know that I will bring value to where we're trying to go. And I'm looking to pull their value out. You can expect for me to provide feedback that is clear and precise. You can expect communication from me that has high expectations embedded in it, but also support. So when I think about what you need and what I need and what the kids need in the community and all the schools, we come together. So you can expect that from me. You can expect me to be a team player because I don't know everything. I know a lot of things, but I know the people in DPS know a lot of things as well. So you can expect me to be a part of the team. You can expect me to have measurable goals that we will sit down and decide what they look like. How are we going to reach them? Who do we need in order to reach them? What resources will we need in order to reach them? And who needs to be at the table? You can expect for me to come in and learn the systems of DPS, to see what's going on great there, and add the value that I've had from other districts to make it even better than what it is right now. When did I decide that I wanted to dedicate my career to education? It was the first time that I walked into that classroom as a student teacher. And I saw her navigate those kids in a way that they were so excited about learning that sometimes she had to calm them down. They wanted to know everything that she was presenting. She had created such relationships with those kids and their parents, and she believed in them and spoke life into them every day. That's when I knew I was where I was supposed to be. So when I became a classroom teacher, I knew that creating opportunities for kids was the way to go. That impacted their life. I knew that education had changed me, and if I could give it to other kids and other people, it would change them. So as I matriculated and was given leadership roles, I had more impact. And the more impact I had, the more impact I wanted to have because I saw kids coming back and saying, "Hey, I'm going to college. Hey, I decided to open my own a nail shop. Hey, I'm going to be an electrician. And so I knew that the impact that I was having was great. So what would need to be the change for? Why would I change? I was doing great work and it would impact the community. And in some places, it's going to impact the world. I believe that some of the kids that I have worked with and have been a part of my village in education are going to go on to change the world. So I knew then, and then as my roles changed, I just do more and more to give kids opportunity to know that education is a game changer for them, that it creates opportunity.
You're doing amazing. Thank you.
So we were going to start here in about a minute.
Oh, so I need to go back.
And then I'm going to start and come out, and then you come in.
Okay, sounds like a plan. See you guys in a few minutes.
So it's really all about the politics.
And it's, yeah, you have to
Play the game. Move the
kind of
Kool-Aid.
work with all seven. And it's very
It just
similar
showed her
to.
cup in the room. and leave.
Does it?
It just showed her cup in the room. He started the light. You can't hear.
Oh,
Oh. My husband was like, "Is this right? Is this the right one?" I'm like, "Yes, babe, that's the right lane. You see me sitting here. You know it's the right lane."
Like, how else do you see?
How do you see me?
Let's hope these mics ain't on.
and plus, with school board though, you, 4 people are up at one time, 3 are up at another. So you can get a new board every 2 years.
Right.
Anytime we change.
Oh, yeah, I know.
All right, y'all ready?
Hey, let's get it.
Good, there we go. Good evening, Dayton. My name is Eric Walker, and I'm a school board member here at Dayton Board of Education. I'm delighted to welcome you to our live stream interview with our parents who will be conducting their interview with the 3 Dayton superintendent finalists. To our amazing parents representing DPS and students, thank you for participating in this interview and representing the Dayton community. Your feedback will play a critical role in determining who we select as the next superintendent of Dayton Public Schools. We are excited about our finalists and look forward to your engagement with each of the 3. We are also excited that this interview, along with the one that you saw this morning, is being live streamed and recorded so that our community can continue to be involved in the process to provide us feedback. Community members, please be sure to go to our website and click on the superintendent search button to access a live stream recording for students this morning and then the parents, and you're able to submit feedback from our feedback survey. Survey feedback is due by the end of day this coming Friday. So be sure to participate as soon as you can. We appreciate all of you and your partnership in finding the superintendent to carry out our mission and successfully move the needle of Dayton Board of Education. Thanks so much and enjoy the dialogue. Watch online. Yes.
Now you wanna know if I'm good, you threw me all off my game, I was all ready and in the zone, and now I'm nervous.
No need. No need.
Oh, I forgot my teeth. I'm sorry.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I am great. Welcome to Dayton. It's not that far, it's from Cincinnati, right?
Right, not far at all.
Okay, and welcome to DPS. Just wanted to let you know how this is gonna go. On this panel is the group of parents, who have, students obviously within the school system. They have come up with about 6 questions that they would like to ask you. We'd ask you to keep each answer to around 5 minutes if possible.
Okay.
And then after you answer your 5 questions, you'll be able to, ask us any questions that you may have for us.
Okay.
So would you like to take the time to introduce yourself to us?
Sure. My name is Dr. Alicia Smith. I am currently the Chief of Schools in Cincinnati Public Schools. I am one of your finalists for Dayton Public Schools Superintendent.
We're gonna go, I guess, across the room and introduce ourselves to you and kind of
Yes.
tell you what our role is. My name is Purity McLean. I am a parent of a second grader at Fairview Elementary. And not only that, I work with a nonprofit in Dayton who does a lot of work with DPS as well. We're in about 7 schools, so I'm kind of all around.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Durrett Watson. I'm a parent of a student at Stivers Middle School, a 7th grader. I'm also a graduate of Dayton Public Schools.
Yep, I'm Daniel Gibson. I also am a product of Dayton Public Schools and have various students in multiple buildings that I represent.
Multiple buildings.
Good evening. My name is Kamaria Dickerson. I'm parents of Thurgood Marshall High School. I'm also a cheerleading coach in our district.
Good evening, Dr. Sharon Smoss. I have 3 students, 2 at Horace Mann and 1 at Stivers.
Hi, I'm Jean Holton. I'm a parent of 2 students at Rivers Edge Montessori.
I'm Daryl Fairchild. I'm a parent of a student at Stivers, who's an 8th grader. She's been in the district since she was 3,
Oh, wow.
and I am a product of Dayton Public Schools as well.
It's nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too. Did you want to go ahead and go with the first question?
Sure. DPS is a diverse district that offers a range of instructional methods, traditional schools, but also an arts high school, a STEM high school, 2 career tech schools, a Montessori elementary school, and a pre-K through 8 girls academy. But DPS also faces challenges with overall literacy rates, supporting our ESL families, and declining student enrollment/retention. Please give examples of how you have managed and balanced wide-ranging student needs in your previous roles, improved literacy and graduation rates for all students, and prepared them for college, career, or post-secondary options. And how do you measure success?
That was a lot. Okay. I want to make sure, okay, I lost my ink pen. I want to make sure I answer all the parts. So I'm going to try to give you back what you said to me so I can hit all.
Yes.
So you want to know what I've done to be inclusive across all those different types of schools, how I have raised student achievement, and there was one more piece.
Prepared for college,
Post.
career, or post-secondary options,
Okay.
and how do you measure that success?
Okay, so when I think about my career and the time I have spent in education, when I was at my last district, I was the deputy superintendent, and that was the deputy superintendent over learning services. And learning services consisted of gifted services, CTE, special education, early childhood, gifted and talented, CTE, all of those things fell under me. So in order for me to make sure that I was inclusive of all those things, I had to know how all those things operated. I had to know what the data looked like at each one of those schools. I had to make sure that I was aware of what each school needed to run and what that looked like and how we managed that, right? So for me, it's always about looking at the data. It's always about looking at each school based on what they need, right? So when you look at the Montessori, we had to make sure that Montessori classrooms have certain things in them. When you look at the arts, you have to make sure we have qualified art people that are in the arts. CTE, we want to make sure that we have the people that have the skills in order to teach the kids those things. So you start in that space of the work, and then you work your way down based on what they need. So that would be, first of all, how I've done that work before. Right now, I'm supervising 44 elementary schools, but last year I was over all 65 schools, which included the 16 high schools. That work entails, first of all, for me, is being in the schools. I have to be able to see the schools, walk the schools, be in the hallways, look in classrooms in order to see what the needs are. That's foremost for me important, because I need to know that what we said we were going to do, we are doing, what we invested our money in, that we're doing, to make sure the curriculum is being done correctly, to make sure the teachers have the support that they need in order to do that work, and to hear from the kids, to make sure you can walk in a building and you can feel when the kids are in a space that they love and they're in a space where they feel valued and supported, okay? So that would be another piece of how I would do that work. graduation work is so essential. So one thing that we've done that I truly think is making a difference is that we have what we call graduation meetings, and we have those meetings monthly with the principals, with the counselors. We have graduation coaches now, and they actually look at that cohort of kids to see where those kids are, who have we lost, how do we locate them, what are we doing to support those kids, who's not on track and who needs to get in credit recovery, who's talked to those parents, who's met with those parents. The one thing that I would like to see done that we haven't quite moved there yet is that we did something at the beginning of the year where we met with all parents about graduation. So they knew how many credits their kids had up front. So they knew if their child was credit deficient, what their child needed to do. If their child had more credits than what they needed, they knew what to do. Then at that point, we had meetings where the children could sign up for Credit Plus, right? Where we made sure that those opportunities were set in front of the kids early on the year before so that kids could get signed up for Credit Plus. And we had lots of kids that graduated with a 2-year degree, associate's degree. So that's one way that we would do that. Now, my metrics is always going to be increasing student achievement. And in order to increase student achievement, we have to make sure that the academics is tight in the classroom. It doesn't matter what program we have. If we're not teaching kids to read, if kids aren't reading on grade level, if they don't have basic foundational math skills, then what are we doing? We can have all the programs in the world and we don't have. So I would say when I look at a school and I look at their data, and I've looked at the data in Dayton, I looked at the areas where we need some support in, then we would be looking at what are we using, right, to teach our kids phonics? What are we using to teach our older kids that our high school kids that may be reading 2 grade levels below? Do we have graphic novels? Do we have a time set aside where those kids are getting those additional things based on that data? So it would be looking at the data, each school, right, by grade level, by cohort, saying this is what we need. I've done that work, and we've moved a whole district by doing that work that way. We have to be data-driven and provide people with support in order to get that work done. Whatever teachers need, we need to get it. Right now, we know we're in a teacher shortage, so we have to support our long-term subs that we have in our building. What does that look like? We want to make sure that we're getting them trained and making sure they understand what a classroom should look like. So my metric would be increasing student achievement from where we are. So we're starting here at 40%, we want to get to 50%. How are we going to get to 50%? Well, this group of kids, let's not forget our gifted kids. Sometimes we forget about the kids that are up here, right? And we spend a lot of time doing interventions. Well, we got to make sure we're covering the kids, supporting the kids that are up here as well. So my metric would be using the data from the state, obviously, but we would have to have some interim assessments, right, along the way. So we would assess the kids when they start school and look at where they are, and then we would teach according to what their data says, and then mid-year we would assess them again, right? And then we would teach them again based on what that data says, and then we would take the state test and they would be ready for it. But along the way, we're going to celebrate the kids, right? Because if they work hard, we should be celebrating them. I think that celebrations have to be tied to also academics and attendance, not just behavior. If kids are working and showing improvement, we want to celebrate them. I think having the kids understand their data, we do what we call data talks with the kids, where you sit and you have a conversation with the kids about their data. I believe that young people want to become the best versions of themselves, but they can only do that when they know. It's how you approach it, right? I'm not coming to you saying what you don't know. I'm coming to you saying, baby, we got to work on this because I need you to have these skills so that you can do this with your life, so you can go to another space in your life. So I need you to be here at school every day because I need to work on these skills with you. There was one more part to that you gave me, declining enrollment. I think you increase enrollment by increasing student achievement because people want to be where kids are doing great things, but you increase it through the parents as well. You guys tell the story of what DPS is, right? So we do that by including you and being inclusive with you and having you be a part of the process and having a voice so that you can say, well, we sat at the table with DPS and they're planning on doing this, this, and this. At one point in our district, we lost lots of kids to charter schools. And we went back and we did a survey to find out why. We surveyed those parents. And you know what the parents told us? They said it was customer service. They told us that we didn't make them feel like we cared about their kids. And so we went back and revamped that whole process. And we created a whole customer care center. And so I think when you're losing kids, you have to go find out why you're losing them. Because sometimes it's not about academics, it's about how you make people feel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give us an example of district-wide programs that you have implemented to increase engagement and two-way communication with families and parents. What key challenges did you face and how did you address those?
So, programs to communicate. Usually, for me, at my level, we use every outlet of social media, and we've been doing that forever. We've used every form of robocalling, texting. I can't think of all the names of the programs that we use, but they all have been connected with keeping parents connected with the school. So I've used a variety of programs, and they all have been where we call out. We send parents a text. We do monthly newsletters. We do videos that have been put on the district website for parents to see, monthly videos where we talk about the things that are going on in the district. Those have been the kind of programs and things that I've done to try to keep parents connected. But from a district level, that's the kind of things that I've done and been a part of, but it's always been something with technology. So it just has always been that way with technology. Now, we've done some programs where we call parents in, and it's a grassroots where we might be talking about after-school programs. The best way for us to get that word out is through the school, and usually they do flyers. We've done flyers to invite parents to things, but I've learned that sometimes the flyers get lost in the book bag. And for older kids, sometimes they don't bring the flyers home. Also, the problem sometimes with technology is that you're getting texts from the school and you're getting texts from the district office. And so parents are like, we're getting too many calls sometimes. So the programs that I've used have always been aligned to technology.
You got a lot of time. You need a sip of water or anything? You good?
Ms. McLean making me think about those technology things. Like I'm trying to think all these different programs that I've used. Like why am I drawing a blank today?
You're all right. So question 3 is, give us a specific example of an equitable policy, system, or structure that you faced and steps you took to challenge it. Who did you involve? What was the outcome? And upon reflection, what would you do differently?
So I think I shared this with the kids earlier, and I'm gonna give you guys just a shorter version of it. When I arrived in Little Rock, they were in a 37-year desegregation lawsuit where it had been inequitable practices with minority students. And I was in charge of instruction, as I shared with you guys earlier. So I had to really look at the curriculum and make sure that it was equitable, that the brown and black children saw themselves in the literature and in the books that they had, and just how we were instructing our young people and what that looked like, because it looks different. Like, do we have opportunity for music and for kids to write and for kids to move around? And so at the end of that year, we did get unitary status. So I would say to you, what we did was we looked at what we had in front of us. There was a team of us that looked at the curriculum. We went in and we pushed the status quo, and I'm gonna tell you it wasn't easy. We got a lot of pushback, especially in the high school, because they wanted to stay with the classics, and they didn't really want to do the letters from Birmingham jail, and they didn't want to really do, there's a book called Romietta and Julio. They didn't want to look at it as a diverse, as an opportunity to look at it from a different lens. But we pushed and said, shouldn't we all be a part of the curriculum? Shouldn't we all have voice? Shouldn't we all be present in the readings that we have? And so it wasn't easy. My team pushed through it. We trained teachers on it. We worked through it. And part of it too was, the court was involved, so we had to show that we were making an effort to do what was right. And so once we did that, we set times in place where we were able to go in and check and see if it was working. We went in to make sure that it was aligned to what we had said we were going to do. And once those things were in place, we went to federal court and we shared what we did, and we did get unitary status. And so that last I checked, that curriculum is still in place.
All right, my question is, please share some examples of how you will become invested in the school district and the community for the long term.
Well, if given the opportunity to be the superintendent of Dayton Public Schools, the first thing would be to move here. And so that I would be a part of the community. I would say to you that I have been in 3 districts in 2 states. And in those districts, I moved into those communities. I became a part of those communities because you can't serve where you're not. And so once I moved in, I was a part of them. I would see people out. They knew that I wanted to be there. And so I would say to you, my first year that I moved to Pine Bluff, which was the first time, that first year I didn't live in Pine Bluff. And I could tell the difference. When I moved there the next year, things changed for me in the schools because the kids saw me in the community, right? They saw me at the Walmart, they saw me at the grocery store. I attended the games, but they saw me as a part of them because they saw me in places that mattered to them. And so I think when I think about being a part of the community, you have to be a part of the community. And since I'm not from Dayton, I have to learn Dayton, right? And the only way to learn Dayton is to be in Dayton. And so that would be my first and the biggest piece of the work for me, because I want to be at the school events. I want to be in the neighborhood. I want to know the places who's serving my communities, who are my nonprofits, who are the businesses by each one of my communities, my schools, because I want to build those relationships with community so that we become one, because once the community and parents and the school come together on one page, the sky is the limit.
Thank you.
If you were offered the position of superintendent, explain 3 key initiatives you would implement to improve student outcomes. What would be your timeline, and how would you measure success?
Ooh-wee.
Got that heavy question right there.
I thought the kids was bad. Wait a minute. They done gave the parents the loaded questions. So I guess for me, I have looked at Dayton Public Schools data. And the first thing that popped out to me was that out of the 27 schools, there were only 4 schools that are at a 3 to a 3.5. And a 3 is pretty much average. Everybody else is 1.5 to 2. I looked at all of the early childhood are 1s. So a 1 star would be equivalent to an F. And so I didn't see one elementary school that was more than a 1 star in that area. We did have some progress, some schools that did well in progress. So for me, my first initiative is going to be looking at the curriculum and making sure there is an alignment of the work. So I need to make sure that what we are using is what we need to be using for all of our students. I also looked at the graduation rate, which is about 72%. Now, the CTE looks really, you guys have a strong CTE program, and the CTE certificates had a really nice, I think it was over 90% of those kids are getting those certificates in CTE. So when I think about initiatives, it has to be around academics, number 1. Because in order for us to get the school to a place that is outstanding, or what do you want, a school of excellence, we got to move the needle around instruction. And normally, what I know from being in this seat is when you see 2 Fs or 2 stars and 1 star and 3 things, that means systemically some things are out of place, okay? So I would be definitely, number 1, looking at curriculum and instruction. I would be looking at what we're using, how we're using it, when we're using it. I will be looking at what assessments we're using to check for understanding, to make sure that we have a clear understanding of how kids are growing and not growing. I would be looking at how we are closing the gap, right? What does that look like? And making sure that students are having an opportunity to increase their learning. I would be looking at those students that are at the top tier, and what does their instruction look like? Are we into any project-based learning? Are those kids getting an opportunity to do some critical thinking at a higher level for those kids? So I would be looking at instruction, number one, across, looking at how teachers have been trained and what professional development they need and how we support them in that professional development. Number two, I would be looking at the culture. Right? I would be looking at what does our culture look like across the district? How do kids feel about the district? How do they feel about their school? How do teachers feel about? Do people feel valued and respected? I would make sure that I'm in schools talking to kids. I would set up opportunities to have listening sessions with kids to see what we could do better, maybe what we're missing, what we need. I would have listening sessions with you guys that looked different than this. It talked about what does a great school look like, sound like, and feel like, and how do we replicate that in multiple schools. I would actually be meeting with the central office staff. How is our work connecting to the school work? How often are we in schools? How often are we providing principals with feedback? What type of professional development and leadership things are we doing with our leaders? How are we supporting them to get them to the next level so that they can be the best version of themselves? And the last thing I think for me would be community. Because I am not from Dayton, I really would have to that would have to be a thing for me to do as a new person to the district, because it's essential that I get to know the community, get to know the parents, get to know the people I'm going to be working with, because I can't do this work by myself. So I have to know who is going to be working with me side by side. I would have to meet, and so people can know my heart and who I am and what I bring to the table, and that I've done this work in communities that I didn't live in, moved in, and we did great work for kids, because it's about the kids, is what I'm called to do. And guess what? It doesn't matter where it is. When kids get great and do great, it's good for the world, right? So the more people we impact, the better it becomes. So I think those would be my three things initiatives, we could call them, that I would look at. They're pretty loaded. It just wouldn't be one thing, so I kind of just went on trying to give you some examples of what they would be. But I think bringing the community in is going to be essential, right? Because we need people to understand that kids need to read wherever they're at. So if they're in the after-school program, I want you to have them reading. If you ride in the car, mama, can they read while you drive? Can they read while you cooking? Because I want them to know the importance. Like 68% of our third graders here in Dayton didn't pass the third grade assessment. Right? So we want that number to be shrinking every year. How does that shrink? That shrinks by having kids fall in love with reading. How do kids fall in love with reading? When they see themselves in the reading. When they're given reading at the level that they read at. When I'm given an opportunity. And guess what? We have busy parents. So let's all as a community stand in the gap for our parents that are busy. Because we're all one. We're a team. It takes a village. If I didn't have somebody looking out for me along the way, I don't know if I would be here today. So sometimes we forget about that village mindset. So somebody else can read to a child or let them read to them on the way at the after-school program, so be it, as long as they're reading.
Thank you.
Oh, did you say my metrics?
Oh, yes. Yes. What would be your timeline, and how would you measure your success?
So for me, I'm thinking that the first 90 days would be, I'm going to be in the grist of all of that. So my timeline is going to be getting in there, meeting with people. It's going to be consistent. So that'll be a lot of my work the first 90 days. Getting with groups of parents, community members, kids, the staff here, looking at the work, looking at the curriculum, meeting with those teams, right, the first 90 days. Setting up meetings with the community. That would be always a constant. I don't know how often, but we'd be meeting constantly for that. So that first 90 days, I'm going to be doing all those things that I share with you. How would I measure my success? When I've met with the people and I have an understanding of the direction we're going. So if the curriculum is where it's supposed to be and we need professional development now, I know that come May, I need to set up professional development for my teachers around this phonics, reading first, whatever things we decide to do, amplify science, whatever those things need to be. For my community meetings, I would have set up meetings with the community, and we would have set dates set that we would meet and talk about what we're going to be doing. I would love to see the quarterly meetings where we pull in the community in the school and we do events and activities at the schools where the community can be a part of that. So my metric would be, in the first 90 days, all those meetings would be taking place with action steps set up to move to the next level. So my metric would be, are those meetings set up, the times and the places? That's how I would measure my success. Have I did an audit of the curriculum, what's working and not working, and what are my next steps for that? And then my culture. What would I have done to begin to set up a culture that is one of culture for learning for the students, a culture at work where people feel valued and respected. And so I would be that's gonna take a little longer, but I will have set up some things to begin to work in that direction.
Thank you.
Last question.
Last one.
And it looks like we're doing pretty well on time.
Good, good.
Yeah. Our district has major busing challenges due to a combination of state law requirements, having to bus charter school students, and retention of bus drivers. Please describe a time when you have addressed a crisis like our transportation in your district. What was the situation? How did you address it? What was the outcome? And upon reflection, what would you have done differently?
So I'm smiling because we were all over the news last year, CPS for transportation. And it was not fun. The parents were brutal because the buses just were not where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be. Some mornings we would wake up and it would be 4 drivers short. So I would say to you, what we did as a district is we sat down and saw what our problem was. One of our problems was that we had to meet with the charter schools and we had to say, these are times that really work for us and we need for you guys to work with us. And they did once we sat and had a conversation. Now, I'm not gonna say that all of them agreed at the same time. I won't say to you that all of them agreed at the same time, but we came to an understanding. So that was one step towards us getting, we also looked at start times, right? So if we change the start times of kids for about 10 minutes, right? Some schools it was 5 minutes, some schools are 10 minutes. Well, then we could layer 2 versus 3, right, runs. That made a huge difference for us. So once we shared the start times and end times with the parents, we had some pushback from a couple of our schools, and because it just did not work. So we went back and we made sure we worked with those parents to make sure we could make it work for everybody. So there were a few adjustments that we had to make because parents had some concerns with daycare and those kind of things. So we did that piece. We changed the school times. And it wasn't major time changes. It was like 5, 10 minutes, maybe 15 was the max. And so that gave us an opportunity to have 2 runs versus 3 runs, okay? Which helped with that crisis. And the last thing we did, because there is a shortage for bus drivers, but the last thing we did was we began to celebrate our bus drivers. We actually went to the bus depot and we had breakfast with them, and we went and shared with them how much we needed them and how much we support them. And I really felt like it was a game changer because they felt like they were a part of us and a part of the team. But the major thing was we began to look at time changes, and we met with the charter school, and the charter school was the biggest piece because we were all just going all over the city trying to meet their needs. And when we aligned them with our needs, and it was a game changer. It was really a game changer. What would we have done differently? I think this year we have not been in the paper once for transportation, so that's been a big win for us. I don't think we would change anything about the process. It was very difficult. I'm gonna say to you, we went back and forth multiple times with maps up and the charts up and talking to principals about, hey, if we did this, how is it gonna impact your day? allowed them to have voice in the process. So we did a survey with them and said, hey, if you had these 3 choices, what 3 choices, which one would you be your number 1, your number 2, or your number 3? And so they got to at least have voice in the process. And then we talked with parents about it. So I think we really tried to include all voices, but it was a major crisis. I mean, it was major for us. I mean, we couldn't even really talk about attendance that year, because how could you when kids were getting to school an hour and 2 hours late because a bus driver had to run 2 to 3 different routes that day because 4 or 5 bus drivers didn't show up. So that was a major crisis for that. When you said that, I just was like, I'm just gonna tell you how we've overcome that. Now, we still have some work to do, but it's so much better. So much better.
We've asked all our questions. Did you have any questions that you wanted to ask us?
Sure. If selected as your superintendent, what would you like to see in me? Okay, once I left my pen outside.
Here, you can take this one.
I think we would like to see a visible superintendent, also one that clearly understands maybe an instructional framework that teachers are following, a system of accountability put in place to ensure that instruction is being delivered the way as you envisioned it, and then holding those people accountable if they're not. So those are some things I'd like to see.
Anybody else?
I think for me, I would just like to see a superintendent who moved with the motto of students first instead of politics first, or I want somebody who thinks about the kids first. And that would be my main thing as a parent.
Students first. All means all.
I would personally love to see the graduation rate go up and actually exposing our kids to post-secondary education versus just going straight to college. Every kid is not a college student.
No.
So giving them the opportunity to be
Post-secondary.
exposed to some different paths.
Yeah. We say the 3 3s: enlist, employ, or enroll. And we want to make sure we prepare them for whatever decision they make. If they want to be employed, we want to make sure we give them the tools to be employable. If they want to enlist, we want to make sure that they have what they need to enlist. And if they want to enroll, we want to make sure they have what they need to enroll. We call them the 3 E's. And that's the preparation for our kids going to, yes. Yes, sir.
For me, a sense of urgency.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes it seems like we've become complacent and accepted the situation.
I would have to say mine would be purely cultural. Just changing the behavioral scripts of all parties.
Yep.
Not only the students, the parents, but administration,
Yes.
teachers, just collaborative
Yeah.
cultural change.
Gotcha.
I'll add to that, and supporting our buildings, supporting our leaders, our principals, and our teachers, engaging with them, and meeting their needs.
Okay. Anything else? No? So, I don't. This is the work. I don't have any other questions, but I would like to say I have moved student achievement in 3 districts and 2 states, but I couldn't do it. I had an amazing team, but it couldn't be done without parents, right? It couldn't be done without the community. We all came together with a sense of urgency and said that our children can no longer wait for us to decide it's okay to do the work the way the work is supposed to be done. That we had to be unwaverable in what we stood for and just saying, if it's not good for kids, why are we talking about it, right? Why are we even going down that road? And so I think getting people to see that comes with doing the work and being consistent in what you say. The consistency is it about kids? When we sit down, does this curriculum work for the kids? If it doesn't, why are we using it? When are we monitoring and adjusting to make sure we meet the needs of all kids? And so I say that to say, when you really look at each school and DPS and really just do an audit of what they need, then that's equity, because each school needs something different. And our job is to make sure that each school gets what they need that's different, that's going to increase student outcomes and also going to increase a culture. I believe in celebration, so I just want you guys, that's my wheelhouse. I believe that that there's a smile that comes on a child's face who has been struggling. Could you imagine being a child that comes to school every day and never has nothing good ever happens for you academically? So when it does, I believe that you should celebrate it, and I believe that you should let kids know that you're doing a good job. You might not be where you're supposed to be, but you're not where you were when you walked in this door. I want us to create environments for kids that are positive environments, that when they walk into a space, they feel the love of the space, that people are there that want to be there, that have a passion for the work. And if we lost that passion, how do we get it back? Because things happen, people get hurt, but how do we draw back into the thing that made us fall in love with wanting to be a teacher anyway, that wanted to be an administrator anyway? Because there's something about doing that work that changes kids' lives that makes you want to get up every day and say, if I do what I'm supposed to do, it's a game changer for some children.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Even though your questions were hard, I don't know who gave you that question. You might want to trade off. Because that was a loaded one. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Dayton.
Yes. Yes.
Stop by the social tab.
Social staff, that's third.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good one. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
I imagine so.
Yeah, the three core values that describe how I lead are commitment, communication, and collaboration. And I'd like to also start off by saying that this is actually rather difficult, not because it's an interview, but it's forcing me to talk about myself. And that typically is not my style. So I would like to say to the community that I'm going to actually have to talk about what I do. But typically I'm a GSD person. I just get stuff done and move on to the next thing without talking about it much. But we'll have to do that today. And so collaboration is critical in terms of one of my core values. And these are 3 of the 5 core values for Dayton Public Schools right now, called the 5 C's, and these are 3 of the 5. And they were developed through research, empirical research, and also aligned with how I operate, think, and believe that schools and systems should be one. And so collaboration is one of them. And I believe in this space around democracy. And democracy and collaboration go together to me. It is difficult at a high level to be at the head of an organization without having a democratic process. It is impossible for me as the leader to think of everything. I can't do it. It's not possible. No one's that smart. So there are approximately 2,500 employees. I'm going to rely on them. There are 13,000 students. Many of them have great ideas. And there's 142,000 or so citizens in Dayton Public School, in Dayton proper, that see me when I'm out and about, that have ideas around how we can get better as a school system. So collaboration is one. The other one is communication. It seems very simple. It's a cornerstone of most leadership manuals, most leadership canons, communication. And it is very difficult to do because it's something that you must consciously do. You must think through it, and you must value other people's thoughts and ideas. And in doing so, you have to listen. Part of communication is listening. And most people would say he's a good listener. He listens. And so communication, listening what people say, and then getting messages out early, getting them out often, and repeating those messages so people understand exactly what message you're trying to get across and what direction you're trying to go. And then commitment. Even those people who may be Dr. Lawrence naysayers, you can't find a person that won't say he's not committed. I might not like his style, I might not like the direction, I might not like the program itself, but no one's going to question my commitment. There are very few people who work harder, who get up earlier, stay up later, and are more committed to education, the job itself, and the community. That's a great question. When I saw this one, I said, what fun I'm going to have with this one. I'm already the interim superintendent. And I did not take this job as interim with the thought that I was an interim. That's not being at all hubris, thinking that I was going to get the job. But my thinking was that when you get the job, then do the job. Someone once told me that it's much harder to pay attention and do the job. And so I wanted to just do the job. I wasn't thinking about the next job. I was thinking about what is best for children in this space in Dayton, Ohio right now. And so this administration that I'm part of, this team that I'm part of, we've come in and there have been significant changes. Changes in how we communicate, changes in the academic direction through the academic action plan that we've gone out into the community and discussed 3 times total, but when you count our guiding principal tours, we've been out to community 7 times. We take calls, emails. I am really available to think through things. We meet with teachers, we meet with kids, community leaders. I'm in a different church every other Sunday. We're doing this job the best we can for children, and if we are lucky enough to obtain the job as superintendent of Dayton Public Schools, great, we'll continue to work. If not, we've done some really good work, and we've set this situation up really great for the next superintendent. So what you can expect is the same thing that you get now. I have a team of people that you can see them on the 2nd and 3rd Tuesdays. They're out in the audience. They're amazing, from the associate superintendent all the way through our public information office. It's a team of about 13, 14 people, and we work extremely well together in the interest of Dayton Public Schools. So I don't think you'll see anything different. This is not an act. It's not things that we're doing so that we can get the job. We're doing the job the same way we do it if we were named permanent superintendent. My dad and mom, hi James and Eva, my dad is deceased. My mom, Eva, is still here I'm not going to tell me your address, Mom, but you're here in Dayton, right down the street from Thurgood. They were amazing people. They were always activists. They always advocated for working class kids, no matter what color they were. My mother was a nurse, but a teacher also. She spoke fluent French. She speaks fluent French. My dad worked at General Motors, Delco Marine.
How you doing, sir?
Doing great. My God, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
How's it going?
It's going.
Good.
How are you?
I'm living the dream. Doesn't get any better than this.
I would say welcome to Dayton, but
Just for official purposes, you can say it.
welcome to Dayton. And so as you have learned, or I do know, this panel is parents and caregivers of students already in the school districts. We have about 6 questions that we want to ask you, and then after that, you'll be able to ask the same question. Would you like to take some time to introduce yourself?
Sure. David Lawrence, Dayton Public Schools interim superintendent. This is my 28th year in education. I've been a principal, assistant principal. Let me back up. Assistant principal at Stivers School for the Arts, a principal at Northmore Elementary and Northmont City Schools, middle school principal at Dayton Regional STEM School, high school principal at Thurgood Marshall High School, and I've held probably every known conceivable position in education.
So I would like to take the time for us to introduce ourselves to you. My name is Amanda McLean. I am a parent of a 2nd grader at Fairview Elementary. I also work for a local nonprofit in the area, so I'm kind of in and
Okay.
My name is DeRay Watson. I'm a product of Dayton Public Schools, and I have a seventh grader at Stivers School for the Arts.
Well, it's good to see you. What school did you graduate from?
Patterson.
Okay.
I am Daniel Gibson. I'm here representing the students from multiple buildings in the district. I also am a product of Dayton Public.
What school did you graduate from?
I didn't finish my senior year, but all throughout it was Colonel White.
Okay, I'm trying to get a Dunbar in here somewhere.
Kamaria Dickerson, Thurgood Marshall, also a cheerleading coach in the district, and I am a graduate of Patterson Cooperative High School.
You were an awesome cheerleading coach.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Chad Sloss. I have 2 kids in Horace Mann and 1 kid at Stivers, and it's an advocate, parent advocate, educator.
Very good. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
I'm Jean Holton. I'm a parent of 2 at Rivers Edge Montessori.
Rivers Edge, they had some great questions earlier today, the kids. They got me to extend recess, bring Chick-fil-A in for lunch, and extra gym periods.
I'm Daryl Fairchild. I'm the parent of a student at Stivers. She's an 8th grader. She's been in the district since she was 3, and I'm a product of Dayton Public Schools, and I attended Dunbar and graduated from Belmont.
You did. We tried to get you to stay.
All right. It's a long question, so.
Sure.
DPS is a diverse district that offers a range of instructional methods, traditional schools, but also in Arts High School, a STEM high school, 2 career tech schools, a Montessori elementary school, and a pre-K through 8 girls academy. But DPS also faces challenges with overall literacy rates, supporting our ESL families, and declining student enrollment/retention. Please give examples of how you have managed and balanced wide-ranging student needs in your previous roles, improved literacy and graduation rates for all students, and prepared them for college, career, or post-secondary options, and how do you measure success?
You're right. Let's go with the literacy issues. I'll just cut to the chase and be recent. I'm part of a team that's, we moved the literacy rate from 15.2% to about 22.95 for the first time 3rd grade ELA test takers. So we moved it about 50% year over year from this year. If you look at projections, typically that number doubles. So we could be somewhere around between 46 and 50% by the time the school year ends for 3rd grade literacy ELA. We will be then surpassing pre-COVID numbers. So we're on the trajectory to do that right now. When you look at all of our internal MAP scores, virtually every grade, every school, we're seeing increases. So I'm currently in this job doing that as it relates to literacy, science, mathematics. We have come aboard as a team, an awesome team. Lisa Miner was the associate superintendent. Melinda Clark, who's the director of accountability and assessment. Keisha Sheehy, who is the chief academic officer. Aaron Dooley, chief of secondary schools. Judy Spurlock, chief of elementary schools. Sharon Goins, director of equity. Those 8 people form the core of the academic team. Oh, and Eunice Brevik, our new preschool director. He's amazing. And so that team really has put in place something called an academic action plan, where we focus on 5 things. And we focus on 5 things with some indicators, but anything that's outside the focus of those 5 things, we put it in the next year bucket, the summer bucket, the maybe bucket. You have to be really laser focused to move schools. You just do. There's lots of people who have lots of things and they'll get you off track. You just have to be focused on the plan. And for us, the plan is K-3 literacy, 8th grade OST math scores, 9th grade transition to having 9th graders ready, because we know if we get 9th graders ready, we can get them graduated. And then college and career readiness, making sure we have increased those AD-CTE pathways and make sure that students are prepared to matriculate when they get to college, not just get there. We want them to graduate. We don't want them to come back here. We want them to stay there and graduate. So we have an academic action plan that addresses those 5 things. Anything outside of that this year, we are just simply asking teachers and principals to work through what we call PLCs, professional learning communities. That's a change this year too. We used to have something called TBTs, BLTs, and DLTs. The long story short, that's state nomenclature for these kind of groups that were mandated, where you had to go through these 5 steps in order to, in theory, move student achievement. We noticed that in every district, not just this one, but in most districts, that's universal, that those were compliance measures. We said, what system can we put in place where people can really talk about children and the work? And so professional learning communities is really a step up from a mandated thing from the state. And so we've instituted that this year to talk about gaps in other places: literacy, math, culture, climate, science, writing. Writing is huge. We have some significant deficits there. Next year's focus is going to be writing. I'll tell you that right now, if I'm named the superintendent. We're going to have an intense focus on writing. We know that with writing, you can change the course of literacy and actually all other subject content matter areas. Writing really is the key, and we'll be there. So we're already, we, the team, we're doing that now. I was the principal at Thurgood Marshall High School, and we had the largest one-year performance index jump in the history of Dayton Public Schools, but I was on the team. That team was Judy Spurlock, who's on this current team, Sharon Goins, who's on this current team, Mr. Smith, who's in, I think he's out east now, Vermont. But we had a great team, some great department chairs. Whenever you hear me talk about something, I'm usually going to talk about team. This cannot be done by myself. I just simply, I think, am really good at assembling really smart and dedicated and committed people. So we work as a team. We work on specific indicators and goals. We stay focused on those. And I don't know that I've been to a school, from E.J. Brown, where I taught, to Stivers as assistant principal, to the Dayton Regional STEM School, to Thurgood, to Northmont, to my first 7 months here, where we haven't had some type of academic achievement and gains. I don't set foot in places and we go backwards. We always go forwards.
Can you give us some examples of district-wide programs you've implemented to increase engagement and two-way communication with families and parents? What key challenge did you face and how did you address those?
District-wide programs and two-way communication. Okay, first of all, let's say that I've gotten off to a slow start in that space. Full transparency, I've had one district-wide parent meeting. I actually have been going out to buildings to meet with community members on my my parent tour, community tour, to explain what we're doing academically. So I shouldn't say I'm off to a slow start. I've just done it differently. I've gone out to the community and said, hey, I'm going to be here, come see me, versus them coming here to the community room. I actually, we sent out invitations, and we did have a focus group of about 6 parents that came to my office, and we gleaned some really valuable information from that. I didn't circle back to that because as the interim superintendent, you have to prioritize. Parents and two-way communication are important, but as the interim, you have to first prove that you can move this district academically. So that's where a lot of the focus was. We do now, as of 2 Wednesdays ago, every Wednesday, every parent, high school and elementary, should get a communication from the principal. It's our Wednesday news day. So what we're proud about is on that day, we blanket the entire community, K-12, every building, all 27, sends out an update for where they are in that space. And the idea is that parents will get on Parent Square and they'll respond and say, hey, I'm glad I got this communication, it's consistent, I have questions. I would say that there's been no whole-scale program to implement two-way engagement with parents, other than I continue to do home visits in my spare time, but we've not systematically done that yet. It's an area where we need to improve.
All right, question 3. Give us a specific example of an equitable policy, system, or structure that you faced and steps that you took to challenge it. Who did you involve? What was the outcome upon reflection? What would you do differently?
An equitable structure, who do we involve, and what was the outcome? So when I showed up at Thurgood Marshall, it was not a STEM school. It's the school furthest on the west side, furthest west side school. And typically, the further west you go, the fewer resources you get. We took the time to put together a grant, wrote the grant. It was about $3.1 million. At that time, it was a large SIG fund grant at that time. And we used that money to form the basis of transforming Thurgood Marshall into a STEM school. We know that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are areas that are, you're talking about inequitable. You don't see a lot of minority faces in those spaces at all. And so it was our intent as a team to put together a framework, high school, to be able to support the challenges of math and science for minority students. Now, we also took that a step further. We have partnerships or made connections with Westwood Elementary, Water Wonder, and Belhaven. And the plan, I would eventually end up leaving to go to the STEM school, but the execution of the plan was begun while I was there. And what we wanted to do was set up feeder patterns from those schools, and then have STEM elementaries as well, so that we had the same language, same lingo from elementary all the way through 12. So the outcome was that Thurgood ended up being a STEM school. I was gone for 7 or 8 years, and there's been a lot of those STEM courses and a lot of the foundation of that are no longer there at Thurgood, but we're back. We're back, and we're going to be able to reclaim Thurgood Marshall as a STEM school. Actually, we're working on that application right now for renewal, and as we work on the next year's academic action plan, it's around, not rebranding, but getting back and providing those resources that used to be in a place like that. So we are intimately aware that where you spend your money, that tells you what's important to you.
All right, sir. I have the fourth question. Please share some examples of how you will become invested in the school district and the community for the long term.
Invested in the school district and community long term. Yeah, I say this with all humility. I was born here with the Jane Addams, Drexel, McNary, Stivers, Rolfe. I finished at Dunbar. So I'm a Dayton kid, a Dayton guy. I worked for almost 20 years here the first time I was in education. I left, went to do some things in some other cities, consulting, worked in Northmont for 5 years. Northmont's a fantastic district. I was the principal, at the time, the highest performing elementary school there, with about 500 kids. It's 5 minutes from my house. I was doing really well. I mean, I was the first African-American male principal in the history of Northmont City Schools. I was really taken care of there. The superintendent, Tony Thomas, and I still talk regularly. He just texted me this morning, good luck. That's my guy. It's a terrific district. When you have applications out there for a teacher, 75 to 200, principal, a couple hundred. So I had a really elite job in a wonderful space. I wasn't dealing with fights. I wasn't dealing with a lack of resources. I wasn't dealing with teacher attendance. I wasn't dealing with parents who weren't involved. I mean, I had a wonderful PTO. Everybody showed up and attended, raised tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, I was really cruising. I didn't have to come back to Dayton Public Schools. I didn't. Certainly not at my age and given my experience. But I saw this as unfinished business. And I wanted to come back and assemble a team that I knew could move us back in the direction of where we used to be, greatness. And so came back as a business manager, learned a great deal about operations. It is probably, if not the most important job that I've had. It wasn't until I became a business manager that I realized that this whole thing doesn't run without transportation. So I poured almost all of my energy into, we gotta fix that. Because if you can't get here, then there's no learning. If you can't get here, then if you don't have drivers, then there are no field trips and experiences for the kids. If you can't get here, it's a problem. And so I learned a ton of things in operations and how to connect the two. And I think for me, I'm invested because at this point in my career, there's not much left else for me to do after this job, other than maybe retire and ride bikes and go fishing or something. I don't know. but I think this can be turned around. I'm invested because this doesn't have to be this way. I was a student here when Dayton Public Schools was proud, when people would bring their kids here. Yeah, I was a student here when there were 11 schools and 66,000 kids. Yeah, I was a student here when we won multiple championships in things not just associated with sports. That's blazed in my mind about how great we were, and I think we can get back there. And so the reason I'm invested in this is because I'm a competitor. I'm a former athlete who doesn't like to lose, and I think we can be winners again.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
If you were offered the position of superintendent, explain 3 key initiatives you will implement to improve student outcomes. What would be your timeline, and how would you measure success?
So the first thing is there's got to be continuity in education. And so we've already developed an academic action plan that's a living document. And what that means is we make changes to it based on what we see out in the field. So for me, it would be to double down and reinforce that space around our academic action plan. We're already doing the work. We're already seeing success. Let's continue to march forward. The other one is we have to be diligent around teacher retention. So you hear a lot of times, you hear people talk about teacher recruitment. So imagine this, you all are in this room and half of you leave. Then I have to recruit for half of you. But imagine if all of you stayed, then I don't have to use that energy to recruit for all of you. I can use that energy for something else. So one of the huge initiatives for me is there were 900,000 teachers who left teaching last year. There's an estimated 1.7 who are leaving this year, okay? So people are not lining up at the door to become teachers, and that's unfortunate. However, we do have some folks here who are long-term teachers, long-term substitutes, reserve teachers, who, as I make my rounds, because I go to schools every single day, what I notice is there are some people out there who have passion for this who aren't necessarily licensed yet. We have to begin to immediately start to grow your own. We're working already now as if we're going to have the job, because even if we weren't, we would pass this off to somebody else. With 2 major universities to create a fast pipeline for teachers to become licensed so that they can become licensed teachers here, and we can fill those positions with licensed teachers. And so when you do that, then you don't have to recruit as much because you're kind of growing your own. So retention for us is a major initiative, and let's be clear, it is not just teachers. When I say retention, and oftentimes in education we talk about the kid, the teacher, the principal, the superintendent. However, when I say retention, I want to retain plumbers. I want to retain carpenters. I want to retain bus drivers. We've got about 130 of them. I don't want to have to keep recruiting bus drivers. I want to retain people in skilled trades. They're the people who fix all the things in the schools while we're all asleep. You know, I want to retain our SROs. They're the folks who keep our buildings safe, and they're in buildings, they know the kids. They're almost like, I don't know, like mentors to all the kids. I want to keep the people in food service and nutrition because they make this thing run at lunch. We can't do this thing without transportation and food. The whole thing goes away. I want to retain our coaches, and I want them to get better at what they do so that we can have kids who know that that's going to be my coach next year in all the sports, because sports are important, and that I stay because I don't have a different coach every year. I want to retain principals. We cannot do this with a revolving chair of principals, with principals leaving, quitting. Yeah, we have to embrace this idea that all 2,500 people are important, and unless there are egregious circumstances, and let's be clear, we do have some of those. Unless they're egregious, then we need to wrap our arms around everyone and think through this whole piece around retention. Retention is important. Retaining employees at all levels, and also retaining kids. Because there was a note earlier here about declining enrollment. I will say that I'm pleased to say that this year we've not seen a decline in enrollment. I cannot attribute that to my administration until next year. So, but we do want to raise our profile in the region. So, academic action plan, retaining all of our employees. That's an initiative. It's important to wrap our arms around that. And then the last thing, if you said the top three for me, I don't think there's anything. We've already done a culture and climate survey. We just got the results back from Hanover, and we're going to figure out how to disseminate those and think about how we move forward with that information. But that was one of the first things we did, the culture and climate survey, and we also have done a happiness. They call it happiness, but it's really retention study on the operations side. Who's happy? Who gets up and happy at work every day? You know, like I missed, I think, 1 day of work in 27 years, and that's because I'm happy to come to work every day. Like people who want to be here, they come to work. So we want to figure out how we can create a culture where everybody wants to be here on a daily basis, and that we treat each other with respect and dignity, no matter how difficult the work, no matter how intense the disagreements. That is one thing that I've seen as I've traveled, that high-performing organizations, yes, they have an academic plan, a strategic plan. Yes, they have highly skilled teachers and principals and other support professionals. But when you go into those spaces, you feel a certain culture when you get there. Like it's a culture of positivity. It's a culture of can-do. It's a culture of let's solve, not complain. It's a culture of not finger-pointing. It's a culture of we versus I. And so that is the number one thing on one of our goals is to change the culture in Dayton Public Schools. And the climate and culture survey that we received back, that's the beginning in that process. We consider this to be year 0. And what I mean by that is, I got this job unexpectedly on July the 13th, something like that, July 11th, 13th, unexpectedly. I did not expect the superintendent to leave. In fact, most people did not. So I was just as surprised as you were. So within 25 or 30 days, you're asked to open a school district with 12,500 kids, 2,500 employees. That means, 15,000 people. And you're expected to have a message for convocation for all the employees. And you're expected to have a plan. And so, yeah, we were hustling early on to try to get the school year open. And in fact, I went to all 27 buildings to talk about what our guiding principles for the year were going to be. That we were going to start with culture. We were going to work diligently on collaboration, communication, commitment, and competence. That those 5 C's were going to be the basis of how we operate this year in terms of guiding principles. And I am on my way back out. I went on a 27, Stivers had me come twice. So I went on a 28 tour building. 28 times I went out to talk about those 5 C's and how that was going to drive our behavior. And I'm ready to go back out now. And I'm going to go back out now and say, how do we do? What's our grade this year in culture? What's our grade this year in how we have communicated things from central office? What's our grade in terms of how we're collaborating with the people out in the field? What's our grade in how competent we've been in terms of making decisions? Commitment. I don't think anybody's going to question our commitment. There's still 6 or 7 cars back here in the parking lot, and those are members of the academic team, and it's 741 for the viewing public. That's what we do every day. We put work in because this is an emergency. We have schools where when we got the data this summer, there were schools where 1% of the 3rd graders passed reading, right? That's an emergency. So we should be here late. We should come early. We should talk on the weekends.
All right, I have the last question.
Thank you. As you know, our district has major busing challenges due to a combination of state law requirements, busing charter school students, and retention of bus drivers. Please describe a time when you have addressed a crisis issue like transportation in your district. What was the situation? How did you address it? What was the outcome? And upon reflection, what would you do differently?
Now I'm telling you right now, what I'm really worried about with this question is people, like they Google you and then they go on Facebook and look stuff up, and they'll know that he and I have been childhood friends. And that question is like, I can't believe they asked that because I am ready. So I sat right out here when I came back to Dayton Public Schools in September of 2022. I sat right here. And I watched person after person after person come to this podium and complain about transportation. It was in the paper all the time about transportation and issues with transportation. So when I arrived as a business manager, I was given transportation. And I couldn't wait. Because I wanted to know, like, what is it with transportation? Why is it so hard? Every year, all the time, there's this conversation around transportation. There have been 27 transportation directors in maybe 25 years. There have been a number of people from central office who were supervising transportation, and they'd all failed. So I have a technique, a pattern that I use, and it's, hey, first go investigate and go see it yourself. Assess, analyze, find the gap, and then figure out how to provide supports. But like, you go see it yourself. Like, I don't manage things from afar. I go see them myself. And so, I head to transportation on a regular basis, 5:15, 5:30 a.m., and I sat for months and talked to drivers. And then I would come back sometimes at 9:30 when they came back from their route for months, and I sat with drivers. And then sometimes I would come back at 1:15 and sit, and I would talk with drivers for months. And they know this, they'll tell this story. I would get my phone out, and I would start typing notes. And you gotta be at transportation, there's a certain culture. They go, Dr. Lawrence, you're not gonna do anything about that. They say, you're just typing and talking. I said, no, I promise, I'm gonna fix this. And I think just going out there on a regular basis and listening, and then taking some of their advice about how to recruit drivers, how to treat drivers, how to schedule drivers, how to retain drivers. I think that process itself kind of ingratiates you to the transportation staff itself. And then the facilities were awful. And for well over a decade, there have been promises about, we're going to get you something, a renovated transportation center. In fact, when I first brought it up, the driver said, we've heard that before. Well, tell us when it's done. Well, like I said, I have a team, we're relentless. And we go through the process, and the board approves the money. The money had been there. The board approves the money. And on James H. McGee, you can see them about 2/3 of the way on their way to completing the transportation center. The new state-of-the-art renovated transportation center for our drivers. Now, earlier I was asked a question about inclusivity, about inequality. Let me tell you what's inequitable. A transportation center with 2 toilets and 120 female drivers. That's inequitable. A transportation center that's dirty, run down, dingy, where we have mostly female, mostly African American drivers, mothers, aunts, grandparents, and we don't move to fix that situation for them. Nah, that was important to me. Yeah, I should have mentioned that as a thing that I thought was inequitable that I made a change in. That was important to me. That was going to be renovated no matter what. And the drivers participated in the renovation around the plans and what it looked like. The routers, dispatch, management, secretaries, everyone played a part when I was a business manager, because I asked and invited them all in to say, hey, in this new space, we're going to do this. What do you want it to look like? So when it's done, you all can come over and walk on the treadmills. You can come over to the kitchen and cook if you want. But it's going to be a wonderful space for the people who are our first responders, the people who see our children first. Yeah, they should have never been in a space like that for that long. Somebody should have done something.
That's all the questions that we had. Did you have any questions for us?
Well, no. I don't. I know they say you're supposed to, you're supposed to come up with a question or two. That's what it says on the internet when you're in an interview. You're supposed to ask a question on the way out. I really don't. Many of the people in this room, I know you personally. I've been around you for large sections of my life where I've run across you in different spaces. And I know that you're passionate about the community and about Dayton Public Schools. This interview process, let's just say that I am pleased at the process itself. What it's kind of forced is it's kind of forced active participation for the first time I can remember at this level to select the leader. So once the leader is selected, that will be the leader. It won't be that one particular group picked him. It won't be that they were appointed or anointed. They went through a process and were deemed to be the best possible candidate for our children in the community in Dayton Public Schools. And so I was excited to get here tonight. In fact, I felt like this is the Super Bowl of the interview.
Well, if you don't have any questions for us, we'd like to thank you, Dr. Lawrence, and good luck.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right, have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
That's good for me.
My name is H. Allen Smith II, and I am a proud candidate for Dayton Public Schools. I am a national educator, a superintendent, coach, and developer. The three core values that best describe how I lead have been a hallmark of my career, and they are integrity, which I fully believe is important in making decisions and keeping the students and the teachers and the families first. The second would be equity. There are students, there are teachers, there are staff that need different things so that they can bring their whole selves to do this work each and every day, and our students can actually thrive in an environment that's meaningful for them. And we have to have many different ways and opportunities for them to be able to do that and express their learning. The third is accountability. And usually when you hear that word accountability, you sometimes think that it's negative. And I don't believe that accountability is negative, especially when it comes to changing lives and making sure our students get what they need to be successful. And so I start with accountability of myself. I am a servant, and I want to serve these students, these teachers, these families, this community well. And so I would start with that accountability. Then I would go into how do we hold ourselves accountable for making sure that we do what we say we're going to do for our students, because our students only have one shot to dream with their eyes open. And we want to make sure that every one of them is able to do that. What Dayton can expect from me as their superintendent is just that I am their superintendent, and I am working strongly to help better the outcomes for the students, which will ultimately help better the outcomes for the community. They can expect a lot of transparency and a lot of communication. I will consistently be in classrooms and in schools, not only looking and observing the work that is happening with our students, but also supporting and coaching our educators to get stronger in their craft. I will hold regular open house and forums to meet with community, to meet with parents, to meet with our teachers. And I will create advisory boards that include our students, our parents, and our community. It is important to me, and I've always done this, that I have an open door. I am not the person that sits in the ivory tower and makes the decisions. I am the one that is on the ground making sure that we are doing everything that we need to do to make sure that our students are going to be successful. And I can only do that in partnership with all of those entities that I've named. I learned early on that I wanted to dedicate my career to education. And I use this term sincerely. My mother, my aunt, and my grandmother were all educators, and they instilled in me a love for learning at a very early age. But it was a pivotal moment when a shy, insecure kid had the opportunity to express himself through a speech. And I won a national speech contest, and that truly helped me understand the power of education. It was then that I saw myself being more than a class clown or a jokester, but truly a learner. And from then on, I wanted to make sure that I had every opportunity, but I also wanted to make sure that other kids, especially those that look like me and come from backgrounds like me, had those very same opportunities where they could have that aha moment. And I dedicated my life. The voices in Dayton public schools community are really instrumental in making sure that we give our students what they need to thrive. And their voices are so important. We cannot do this work in a vacuum. This is a partnership. And we need our families, and we need our teachers, and we need our business leaders to come together and rally behind a common cause. This is going to help engage more students. This is going to help invite and retain more educators in the Dayton public school system. And it's going to change the trajectory of our student outcomes. It is important to me that in many different ways and many different opportunities are created for us to bring partnerships to this community, to bring more resources to this community, but also to add innovation, not just for innovation's sake, but for the sake of our students to be college, career, and military ready. You know, the final thought I think that I would like to share with the Dayton community, if you see behind me in the background, there's my Central State jersey. And I am a proud graduate of Central State University many, many years ago. However, it is the place that formed me. It is the place that made me who I am. And I got my start in education at a school called Allen Elementary School as a kindergarten teacher. And then I worked at WHIO and WHKL for several years as a radio sales associate. Hey, how's it going? Pretty good. Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How you doing? Good to meet you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Turn this mic on.
to Dayton.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Have you been here before?
I used to go to Central State, and I worked for Allen Elementary School in Dayton.
Really? Forgot for Central State.
Yeah.
We are, as you know, we are a group of parents and caretakers for Dayton Public Schools. So what we've done, we've come up with 6 questions that we will ask you.
Okay.
And then after that, we'd like to ask you to ask us any questions that you might have or questions that you may have. So would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, how long you want it?
How long we got time.
Okay. All right, so I'll start off by giving you a story. And I'm from Denver, Colorado originally, and was born to a teen mother. And my parents were together, but I really say my 3-headed mother really were the ones that took care of me. And that was my aunt, my grandmother, and my mother, obviously. And I was a very low-conscious, self-conscious kid. I didn't like school at all. And I had a lisp, and I wore these glasses, and they said that I needed to go to a trailer to take classes. And so my mother ended up moving me around to 7 different schools. And it wasn't because I wasn't a good student, it wasn't because we were transient, it was just because I thought it would be better to be the class clown, the joker, instead of actually being, serious about my education so I could keep kids from making fun of me. And it wasn't until my 7th grade year when my grandmother and another teacher by the name of Mr. Otterberry, I always give him a shout out. He was the only black male teacher I had and my football coach, and I really appreciate him. And they made me stay inside for the summer. And they said, you're going to learn how to write, read, and recite a speech. And I said, okay, cool. I hate you guys, right? But I did it. And then I gave this speech during the Optimist Oratorical Contest. And I won that speech contest. Now, nobody else was competing, so I was going to win this speech contest. However, I did go on to say that speech some 12 or 13 more times and ended up winning the National Optimist Oratorical Speech Contest and a full scholarship. And that was the first time that I saw myself as a learner, that I knew I could be something different. And from that point on, I really didn't know how because I was still thinking as a kid, but I knew that I wanted to help other kids not feel like I felt. And so there were many different ways in my young life where that had played out, and I really just didn't know that I was doing. And then I got an opportunity to get into education after I played basketball overseas, and that was at Allen Elementary School. And it was easy. It was like it was natural, right? And I said, oh, okay, I found my purpose. However, I also had some old life still left in me. And the old life was, you just came back from playing basketball, you need to live that lifestyle. So I got out of education and I got into radio, and I worked for WHIO, WHKO radio stations. And I did that for the next 8 years in radio, all over the country, Charlotte, Augusta, Denver. And I found myself really disenfranchised at one point, to the point, I don't know if you've heard of cluster headaches, but I had cluster headaches, and it was because I wasn't living in my purpose. And I don't know to this day how my dad found me, but he found me and he said, son, you're just not gonna be settled until you do what you're called to do. And so I opened a school for students that were kicked out of traditional schools. And we were able to graduate 100% of those students and 100% to college. And I even adopted my son from that school. And the district said, if you can do that at that school, let's see what you can do at our district schools. And so that's when I became a district leader. I was going through a principal certification at the time. I didn't have one. And because somebody told me that we think you might be okay, but don't know if you really have what it takes to get the certification, I went and got 4. and I went and got 4 superintendent certifications. And the rest has been kind of history. You all have seen all of my stuff, so I'm not going to bore you with that. So that's why I am here today, because this is my purpose and my passion. And you probably saw in my video, I'm going to say it again. I live by African proverb that says you have no more worth than a penniless man unless you give back to the shoulders upon which you stand. There are shoulders here in Dayton upon which I stand. And so that's why I'm here. Okay.
Now, we just like to introduce ourselves to you and tell you who we are. My name is Purity McLean. I am the parent of a 2nd grader at Fairview Elementary. I am also employed by a nonprofit here in the city, so I'm in and out of probably about 6 or 7 schools in DPS.
Okay. Sorry about that. Go. My name is DeRay Watson. I'm a product of Dayton Public Schools, and I have a 7th grader at Stivers School for the Arts.
I am Daniel Gibson. I'm a product of Dayton Public Schools as well, and I'm here representing a few students throughout Dayton Public Schools.
Okay.
My name is Kamaria Dickerson, children with Thurgood Marshall High School, and I'm also a cheerleading coach in the district.
Hello, Dr. Chad Sloss. I have 2 kids at Horace Mann and 1 at Stivers, educator, higher education within the city of Dayton.
Okay. So you have a middle schooler and a elementary school?
A middle schooler and 2 elementary schoolers.
Nice. Okay.
I'm Jean Holton. I'm a parent of 2 at Rivers Edge Montessori.
Okay, and that's elementary as well?
2nd graders.
I'm a parent of a daughter at Stivers School for the Arts. She's an 8th grader. She's been in the school district since she was 3.
Okay.
And I'm a product of Dayton Public Schools.
Great.
So this first question is long. DPS is a diverse district that offers a range of instructional methods, traditional schools, but also in Arts High School, a STEM high school, 2 career tech schools, Montessori Elementary School, and a pre-K through 8 Girls Academy. But DPS also faces challenges with overall literacy rates, supporting our ESL families, and declining student enrollment/retention. Please give examples of how you have managed and balanced wide-ranging student needs in your previous roles, improved literacy and graduation rates for all students, and prepared them for college, career, or post-secondary options, and how do you measure success?
That's a meaty question. However, I'm gonna break it down into smaller chunks so it'll be digestible. So the first thing that I want to say is with the range of different school options that you have. One of the things that I noticed on my visits, from my background, I actually train superintendents in the state of Texas, and I actually support aspiring superintendents, so I'm always in schools with instruction. And the one thing that I see is that you cannot have inconsistency regardless of the model of the school. I don't care if it's a Montessori school, I don't care if it's a STEAM or STEM school or art school, the resources have to be at every single school, right? You should not, your quality of education should not be based on what school you go to or what school you do not attend. And I know, Stivers and Horace Mann are 2 of the top schools looking at the Ohio State report card, right? And so what does that mean for our students and how we measure quality education? I'm gonna jump to the end and then come back. You have to inspect what you expect. Every single time, every single classroom, every single day has to be consistent. What that means is there has to be lesson plans in every classroom, regardless of what the class is, whether it's a core, whether it's an elective. You have to then be able to coach teachers to be great in first instruction or first teach, and you have to be able to monitor student progress, not for an assessment, a state assessment, but because students and people and human nature, they like to see their progress. So you have to be able to monitor that. What does that look like? You have formative assessments, you have non-formative assessments. Students have to be measured with exit tickets every day, they have to be challenged, and you have to use differentiated instructions. Without that, you're not going to know where students are. Two, I would argue without that, you're not going to have a relationship with students. And these students need relationships because there are a lot of mental health challenges and a lot of students are off task, right? So they're going to engage in something. It may just not be what you want them to engage in. All right, when we think about the next part of the question, how have I done this before? First, I've spent a lot of time developing what I would call my instructional chops. I cannot ask teachers to be good instructors without being able to support and develop them. I have to be in the classrooms with them, and I have to be able to help them so that they can connect with students. That's something that I did today. Maybe I wasn't supposed to do it, but the teacher in me came out. So I saw a student struggling in a pre-algebra class, and he deferred to another student because he didn't know the answer. And what did the teacher do? Not any fault or blame, shame, or judgment to the teacher. She wanted to keep the lesson moving, right? And so she let the student off the hook. You can't let the student off the hook. You have to have productive struggle. So I interrupted politely and said, okay, I'm gonna come back to you because you know the answer, right? And he, of course, got a little middle schooler. Why are you picking on me? I said, I'm not picking on you. I know you know the answer. Gave him a couple of prompts, and before you know it, he came up with the answer. And that was a proud moment. So we have to be able to coach. And again, it wasn't about what the teacher wasn't doing. I understood that. But real-time coaching is important. The second, we got to do what we say we're going to do. And I've been able to do that in every school district. I worked in Oakland Unified School District. Oakland Unified School District was a pretty challenging situation. We had 24-hour security because a superintendent was killed in the school district. And one of the things that was really important was if we're going to make movement, we have to move past keeping kids safe and truly get to the education. I use a change management process with our educators to really help them understand that this is not something that we wanted to mandate to them, but it's something that they needed to do with themselves. So we encourage, great teachers from some of these high-performing schools to share and do peer reviews with their teachers so that they were learning from each other. Much easier to receive. The third thing that we were able to do is we were able to then go in and provide the resources that they needed to be successful. I'm not just talking about technology for technology's sake, but I'm talking about how can I make your life easier so that you can focus on the things that you like to do best. In this situation, I would say students need a lot of mental health support. We need to be able to provide that for our students here. The other ways that it's been successful is you have to put in a system and a strategy that is transparent. This cannot be done in a vacuum, all right? Listen, I'm in central administration. I know what people think out there. Those are the people that sit in the offices and make the decisions and never get into the schools to see what the teachers are doing and what the students are doing. We have to be vulnerable and transparent. Way gone are the days where you can just sit and just say, hey, this is what you have to do. You have to know what's going on with students. And then finally, and this gets more to the personal side, we have to be able to create for our students and our teachers and all of our staff, our adults, a place of belonging. So there is a man by the name of John A. Powell, all small letters if you ever look him up. He is from the Haas African American Institute in Berkeley. He created this structure called targeted universalism. What targeted universalism is, we are going to create a place of being where everybody can belong. The reason why this started was because in Austria, the murder and crime rate was so high. And so they said, we cannot continue to put people in jail, i.e. we cannot continue to suspend or discipline kids. We have to be able to do something to welcome them into the community. So we have to find and create this place of being for everybody. So they started having different structures where people could see themselves within the community. The crime rate went down, people became more engaged, and now we see it see a really thriving country. The same with Dayton Public Schools. And that's what I've done in other school districts. I brought in actually John Powell and said, listen, we got to create this place of belonging and use targeted universalism so that people start seeing themselves. It's going to help greatly in one area that is really struggling, which is in many of the schools where I've seen the data, there's over 15% long-term subs in a lot of our middle schools, right? We have to create places of belonging regardless of if you are a long-term sub or if you're a certified teacher, because these kids cannot continue to see a revolving door. So the retention efforts have to be high. And that's something that I was able to do in San Antonio while I was there last. I was able to put in a structure even during the pandemic, which yielded 85% retention. I don't know if I answered all of it. but I sure tried.
It's a heavy question. Give us some examples of district-wide problems that you've implemented to increase engagement and two-way communication with families and parents. Like, what key challenge did you face, and how did you address those?
Yeah. And this is not probably a safe answer, but it's the real answer. It's who I am. I'm a servant leader, right? I'm not the person that is actually making the decisions. My job is to actually serve. And if I keep the main thing on our students, then I'm always humble enough to understand that I have to listen to our students and I have to listen to the people that are guarding our students, right? That's you all. And without that, that means I have to be on the ground. I have to take the contentious meetings. I have to take the hard conversations. I have to make some tough decisions, but not in a vacuum. And I have to communicate when we make mistakes. Because I think what has been done in education is people think that it could be done in a panacea, right? Everything could be done at one time. We're gonna, overnight, we're gonna bring this system in, and we're gonna be able to change the outcome for students. We have to be honest with people. This is not a panacea. It's not gonna happen overnight. It is a layered cake, and we're gonna have to layer this cake carefully and not miss any ingredients, or our cake's gonna fall flat. So that is something that I have to do with our parents and our community and our students. What it was really important to me was talking to the students today. It was this young man. It was a great opportunity. We walked into the middle school classroom, right? And as soon as we walk into the classroom, kid stands up. What y'all doing in here, right? You know, I didn't look at him, right? But I heard him. I didn't look at him. But I walked right over to him, right? He's sitting in the back. I walked right over to him. And of course, when I walked right over to him, what do middle schoolers do? They all turn around, look at the kid, right? And so I said, so what are you doing, sir? What are you working on? And of course, he wants to answer loud, right? And he wants to be, you know, the bravado. He doesn't want to get shown up, right? And so I just keep asking questions. Finally, his tone starts to match my tone. And then he starts to tell me about what he's doing in history. And I looked at the kid and I said, you're bored. You know all of this stuff. Of course you're gonna be the way that you are if nobody engages you, right? If we don't engage with students like that, we never know that this kid is sitting back here bored. We need to challenge him. How are we gonna challenge him, right? And so that's putting myself in situations. As an instructional leader, and as a superintendent and assistant superintendent, I was in school, in classrooms every single day, my last superintendency. In fact, that was really my job. I was coaching teachers and in school every single day, right? That has to be done here. If we're gonna change the expectations, you gotta see me. I should not be, who are you, when I walk into the door. I should be, oh, you're here again? Right? And when they say I'm here again, I want them to be able to say it for good reasons, not negative reasons.
Good. You need water, or just keep going on the questions?
You might be onto something, brother.
I'll read the question. Give us a specific example of an inequitable policy, system, or structure that you faced and the steps you took to challenge it. Who did you involve? What was the outcome? And upon reflection, what would you do differently?
So we're streaming live? Okay. There are many inequitable policies in education. One such policy is something that I'm dealing with now, and it's hyper-political, and that is the removal of certain books that students are not able to access and see themselves in. That is an inequitable practice. There's no way, as an educator, could I allow that students cannot read material where they see themselves in that material. So what do I have to do to make sure that that is not a reality? I have to work with the curriculum where students can actually see themselves woven throughout the curriculum. It's a part of the fabric, right? And I have to then also bring in real-world experiences where students can learn from those in their community that they see themselves in. And then I have to honor cultures. And that is respecting that people come from different cultures that they are proud of, and they should be proud of, and they should not be something that they see on a day or a month or a week, but they should see every single day that they're in school. Listen, we are perfect, education is perfectly set up for the results that it's getting. Perfectly set up. If we do not change that and we do not fight some of these woes, we're going to continue to get the same results. And so we have to do it smart. We have to be smart about it, right? We can't break any laws, but we can't accept the status quo either. So I said that very up here, since we're on TV, but there you go.
Thank you for your answer on that. I've got the fourth question. I'm going to say, please share some examples of how you will become invested in the school district and the community for the long term.
I think the school district is the easy one, right? I'm going to do the work and be here, not a problem. The second one is the bigger question. How would I become invested in the community? And there's only one way that I know how to do that. In San Antonio, I knew nothing about the community. I never lived in Texas, right? I've lived 10 places and Texas was not one of them. And so I got involved with Leadership San Antonio, right? And went through a year-long program to learn about civic engagement and get involved with the politics, not become a politician, but get involved and see what's going on. I became one of the consultants for the mayor on his the pandemic education platform. And then I attended community events and fairs and learned about the community. The good thing for me is I still know people here. You know, I saw a couple of them today. I saw a person that works for the school district that I went to school with here today, and I said, hey man, I didn't know, you were even here. And he said, this is my first year back from Columbus. So it's reconnecting with those people and then learning. And then also, you all are here, right? And so it would be easy for parents, for me to connect with parents who I know are really invested in their students and saying, hey, help me out, what do I need to know? And then there are other people in the community that I've already been connecting with as I did some research before I came, to this process.
If you were offered the position of superintendent, explain 3 key initiatives you would implement to improve student outcomes. What would be your timeline, and how would you measure success?
All right, I'm gonna take my time with this one because the easy answer is to give you a list of things, that actually may not be the right things. Okay, I can't come in and tell you what I would implement based on a snapshot of what I've seen today. All right, I can tell you where it's pointing, and I can tell you the direction that we need to go so that we may be able to get to these other things. But the first thing I would do is called an organizational diagnosis. And that is, I would ask teachers, I would ask students, I would ask parents, what in 3 questions, it's a very simple process, in 3 questions, what are these things that we see? And then put the common threads together and then base my plan off of that. Obviously, the obvious answer is I want to improve instruction. Okay. The second obvious answer is chronic absenteeism is out of bounds. All right, we have to improve that. The third is retention of staff. But there's something that may be at the forefront of that. And my hunch is you have to start with culture. All right? And I think culture trumps everything else. I hate to use it. Culture tops everything else. Okay? And because of that, we may not have room to do anything else. But if we get the culture right, everything else falls in line pretty quickly. And so I would rather spend my time, as they say, measuring twice and cutting once, instead of cutting, going to buy a new piece, cutting until we get it right. So that's what I would say. I was going to pull out I did put together an entry plan. Nobody asked me to do it, but I did put together one. But I wanted to just give you the real answer of where I think we are right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got the last question.
All right, Mr. Fairchild, thank you.
Yeah.
I know you guys are tired too.
Our district has major busing challenges due to the combination of state laws, requirements, we have to bus charter school students, and retention of bus drivers. Please describe a time when you have addressed a crisis issue like transportation in your district. What was the situation? How did you address it? What was the outcome? And upon reflection, what would you have done differently?
Okay. So in Denver, I was over what they call the Denver Summit Schools Network. I created this network for 22,000 students. There were 18 schools. We had to condense the schools, and we came out with 11 schools. It was the worst performing area in the district by far for many, many, many years, for decades. And people were not sending their kids to the school. In fact, one of the schools was on Dateline as one of the worst in America. Teachers were not going out to teach. It was a mess. Chronic absenteeism numbers were through the roof. You know, a lot of similar stuff. So we reconstituted the schools. We came up with art school. We came up with STEM schools and early college and et cetera. And then what we had to do is take away the notion that kids couldn't get to school. So with the budgeting challenges of transportation, because transportation is pretty expensive, right? We think of gas, it has to be in buses. We think of bus drivers, have to be paid, right? All of that stuff. When we think about routes, and school districts do not have an infinite amount of school buses. What I came up with is the same system that the city uses in Denver. And that is, if you look at the way buses run in the city, they run on a loop, right? And so we started looping buses. And we said every 15 minutes, buses will be coming. And elementary students, and middle school students, and high school students are gonna ride together. But they're gonna get to school, and we're gonna take away their excuses. So you rode the Red Express, or you rode the Blue Express, and you got to school, and it removed that. We also saved money, because they were also on a loop, we didn't need as many buses. And then we were able to use some of the other buses for some of our SPED students who are required by law, but also some other students that came from other parts of the area that now wanted to come to that area. So what ended up happening? What's the results of the whole thing? So in a study that was done, you can see at the University of Colorado in Denver partnered with the U.S. Department of Education and said this was the most successful school reform in the history of education, period. That's
part of what this effort created.
That was all the questions that we had. Did you have any questions for us?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Look, after that first question, you should have known I am not gonna let y'all get off the hook without asking a 10-part question. No. It's only fair. No, I really want to know from a parent standpoint, right? Obviously, you have chosen schools for your students, one, where they're going to be successful, and two, where you've seen success in these schools. What do you think needs to be done in the district to make equitable opportunities for other students who are not able to access those schools?
I can say for myself, I brought my daughter back to Dayton Public. She was in a different type of school, and I brought her back because of my employment now, because of the resources that are offered at the school that she's at. It's more of a year-round, wrap-around kind of thing, after-school programs, lots of resources in the building, and it works for her. I think maybe research coordinators in other buildings besides the ones that have them to work with students issues that are not necessarily education issues, because as you know, if I can't eat, I can't learn. If I can't have a uniform, I can't learn. If I ain't got nowhere to live, I can't learn. So that's really why I like the building I brought her to, is because there's a wraparound resource kind of thing for her. And she was really excited to go back because she had done summer programming there and was excited to come back. So that's why I chose it.
Nice. A couple more?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
You want me to repeat it? It's always, no. So the question was, obviously, you all have chosen these schools for your students where they can be successful and where you've seen success at the school, right? For those students who are not able to access that, how would you organize that for the district so that all students can have the same quality of education?
I'll go next.
Thank
I
you.
brought my child back to Dayton Public Schools specifically for Stivers, the School for the Arts. When I went to Dayton Public Schools, I went to Patterson Co-op, which is no longer there, but it was a vocational school where you learned to trade while you were in high school. So that was the reason I was there. But I brought her back specifically for Stivers and the arts.
Okay. And so she's thriving there. For other school students that cannot access Thrivers, what would your suggestions be to help make them stronger, like Stivers?
I believe it would be the culture. You got to create a culture of learning and success in order for that to happen. Okay. It can't just be curriculum and we're going to get you here just because you're in attendance. It's not going to make you successful.
So the culture of learning, she thrives in that culture.
Yes.
And would you say that she knows people and people know her well?
So far, this is her first year there. She's a 7th grader, and she's met a good group of friends, and she's fell right in line.
How about the adults? Do they know her?
Mostly that I know of. I know the security folks do. They know her and got a nickname for her, and they have a relationship, and the principals. Okay. But I can't speak for, all aspects of it.
Do they communicate with you? The teachers, the adult?
Not as much as I would like them to.
Okay. All right. So thank you. I'll take one more answer from that question.
Well, I mean, this is like $100 million question, right? And
I told you I was going to get you now.
Yeah. and to be candid, I tell people that you can get a good education in DPS, but it's a very narrow margin that parents have to be on top of to get their child through the district with a good education. And your question, I think, is one of the most important is like, how do we ensure that a parent knows they're going to send their kid into a school and that school is going to be quality education? Because right now that's not the case.
So what would you do?
I think it's got to be multi-pronged, and it can't just be the school district. Yeah. The business community's got to be invested in it. The city commission and elected officials across the region. I mean, we have such untapped potential. We're squandering opportunity costs left and right. This region going to need X number of engineers, teachers, nurses in 10 years, and DPS, isn't prepared to help these kids move into those roles. So I think And it's a recommitment by the whole community that the school district is gonna bring quality education. So I think the superintendent in that role has to be, you know, a leader who can cast a vision
And galvanize.
and bring the whole community along.
Does anybody want to add on to that?
I do, because I had to sit here and think about that for a second. I think a lot of the problems with the kids, you need to be able to filter out those kids. They may be at a school that doesn't offer something that grabs their attention. So they're going to be the disturbance in the building. And I think really kind of getting into those buildings and say, okay, we have this young man here, he's over at this school, but it doesn't offer STEM programs, because Thurgood Marshall High School is STEM programs. So, okay, he likes video games or he likes drones, starting to move those kids around to those buildings that have those programs that will capture them, that will really pull them in. I think that would be the biggest thing, kind of like really filtering the kids out and, okay, what do you want to do with your life? This is where you need to go, and these are the programs that you need to be in.
It's interesting that you brought that up. If you look at the data, the schools that are performing relatively well are niche schools,
Yeah.
right?
Because when you go to Stivers, you're an art student. Like, you're there for a reason. These are kids that are already into dance, they're into the visual arts, so it's something that they love. But when you go into schools like Thurgood Marshall, it's a STEM programs, but you have to get those kids really invested into it.
That's right.
So when you get those teachers in there to say, hey, like, drones are cool, like, you can do this with, you know, some drone licensing and things of that nature, then the kids are bought in, and the behavior is going to change, the culture is going to change.
Sure. As soon as you engage them, like I said, they're going to be engaged in something.
Right.
It just may not be the education.
Right.
So, yes, go ahead.
Well, you know, they're niche schools, but it's been my observation, and you've seen more urban districts than I have, that it seems like the niche schools in urban districts are the place where middle-class families identify as a good school, and it kind of builds on each other. So middle-class families come there, there's a sense of stability, it builds on its reputation as a good school, and people want to be there. And it's the niche schools that kind of do that. I don't know if that's the case or not.
And to add to that, it's the niche schools that require a lot of the families to even get into the schools. You know, like Stivers, you guys had to go to what? You know, auditions, you had to do so much when you think about those schools, but when you think about some of the schools, you're just placed in those schools based upon where you live.
So, in what they did, I mean, because in actuality, I've done some of this before, but as a public school, right, technically, any kid can go to any school, right? You can put conditions on the school because you create buy-in. And that's what you're doing. You're creating, like you said, a culture already where you have to buy into this program. This is the way we do things here at Stivers. Not only do you have to audition for your arts, but you have to know the code of conduct. You have to know how right? You have to do that. And all that is creating buy-in, which is the culture of engagement. Now, Mr. Fairchild, you asked a question that I want to go back, or you said something that I want to go back to. You said it's a multi-pronged approach, and the approach is going to include businesses and the greater community. And this is a real question. We are on camera, right? So y'all know this, and y'all live here right now. So I don't want to put you out there. But do you really think the community is ready for that kind of effort and change?
I will say the community is ready for that because they've done that before. The high school that I went to was Patterson, was a vocational school. The community bought into that. When I was a sophomore, junior, I went to school half a day, I worked the other day. So like the community was extremely involved with that. I think we have gotten so far away with like the behavior of the students, it's kind of gone south, then businesses are not wanting to be invested anymore.
I would have to say that the community is not ready yet. It's not to say that they can't get ready in the future, but you look at years and years of being disenfranchised from all of these processes, educational processes, career, you know, the well-being index reports that we're extremely low in everything, health disparities. And so we have a whole lot to overcome before we can galvanize as a community to do these certain things. And just to piggyback on what Mr. Fairchild was saying, looking at a collective effort from stakeholders and things of that nature is needed, you know, because you can't really look at school through a business model completely. And I think that that's what we've done. And so when you look at the disparities, you have to look at, well, who are the people who are capitalizing off of the disparity? Or poverty pimps is what we like to call them, you know? If you're able to continue getting money from a failed system, there's no incentive to improve.
Right, right.
So you're gonna stay failing, and the money's gonna keep on coming in. And so once again, it comes down to culture, you know, and you know, I'm very transparent. Dayton has been a city of corruption for quite some time on many levels.
Okay.
And so, you know, just really coming in and transparently acknowledging it, being conscious of it, acknowledging it, and then becoming accountable for the changes is critical.
Critical.
It's critical.
I appreciate the answers, but I mean, only way we're going to be able to do this work is if we're going to be honest and transparent with each other.
Exactly.
I would say that I think, and this is from my personal experience, from what I'm experiencing right now, there are certain organizations in Dayton right now that are filtering money, specifically back in more urban areas in the city. And what we're seeing is that they're creating like community work groups, and these work group meetings, people are actually coming and they're invested, and I think they want to see a change and they want to see something different. They just don't know exactly what that looks like or how to do it. Like, I think everybody's invested. Like, I know this isn't necessarily working, but we got to figure out how to make the change. So I think people are ready. I just don't think people know how to buy into it, basically. And again, that goes back to the whole culture thing, so.
I would like to add a little bit to that.
Yes.
Like when you ask, are the people ready? Some people may be ready, but as we all know, people don't know what they want until they see it. So once the results get shown and seen, then people can say, hey, I want that too. I want to achieve that too, when they see it happen. It's like you didn't know you wanted that Whopper from Burger King until you seen the commercial.
Right. I appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would just say that I don't think you need the whole community. You know, I think you need a critical mass. And I would say for the business community, I think they're more ready than they ever have been, given the challenges in labor, you know.
Right.
And so they have a vested interest. And I would think about, you know, trying to go through different segments of this community to identify their interest in DPS being a successful school, trying to counter those people who have an interest of it being a failing school.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ms. Holton, I haven't heard a lot from you. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are around some.
Well, so it's a little harder for me because I'm a little new to the district. My kids are second graders, so we've only been in the district for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, but I lived in Dayton for many years now.
Okay.
So I'm still trying to figure out how this whole work organization works and who tells people to do what and who is in charge of what decisions. So I'm still trying to figure out how decisions get done and who do I need to advocate with to promote things that are near and dear to my heart.
So what are the things that are near and dear to your heart?
So I volunteer a lot in schools,
Okay.
and I see the idea that, like, I've met some of these third graders who are not graduating to fourth grade, who are not at their reading capability where they need to be. And they're bright kids, they're smart kids. And to think that our district is failing with these kids is heartbreaking. And, you know, I just, you know, you get to know the kids, and you want to see them succeed, and you see good hearts there, and you want them to grow into proud adults that add to this community too. So
Yeah. You brought up a point. I mean, third grade literacy obviously is a big metrics, and we know what happens if students are not reading on grade level in the third grade, or at least what they say. I think you can make that up. But there are important transition years, right? Third grade being one of them, fifth grade being another one, eighth grade math being the biggest predictor. if your kid is not actually taking 8th grade algebra in the 8th grade, there's a large correlation that they are not going to be college and career ready. Large correlation in that. So these transition years we have to then work on. But I will tell you, and this has nothing to do with me in this process, this just has to do with educator, is that you have to advocate for phonics and phonemic awareness early on. Kindergarten, 1st grade, phonics and phonemic awareness. If you want kids to read by the 3rd grade, that's what you have to put back into the schools. All right. We have taken that out because it's not taught anymore. They're starting to go back to it in some places. If you look at some of the most successful school districts and states in the country, Massachusetts being one of them, challenge you to look at what they're doing in their early literacy efforts, because a lot of that is happening. So, anyway, I will stop there. I think we're at 42. This is 45 minutes, right?
Yep.
I'm good. Do y'all have any more questions for me?
No, we are great.
Okay.
We're limited.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was very nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you all, and y'all have a good day. Hey, thanks for staying this late at night. It shows the community and your kids how much you care. So.
Yes.
Yeah, well, he was before he came. Yeah. Didn't he go there?